Yo, what's good? We have another reaction video. This one is from Mr. Ballin. It's a video that's called Shocking Small Town Mysteries. Everyone's already dead, plus the writer from hell. With this, yeah, there's like a town I think where everybody's already dead or something like that. It's weird. I was told about it. So I didn't actually watch the video though, so we're gonna find out what this is about right now. Drop a like on this video. I'm gonna like his video at the end of this joint, but drop a like on my joint right now, bro. Stop being stingy, you know what I'm saying? We can help everybody over here. Let's go.
Today, we're going to cover two very strange but very true stories. But before we get into those stories, if you're a fan of what we do, and we upload once a week. So,
My
to our
fault, bro.
channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly
skip over
uploads.
that.
Okay, let's get into today's stories.
Wait, hold up. Alright, bet. Hold on, we back, bro.
One afternoon in the spring of 1990, a young mother tidied up her family's living room in Pingyang Township, which is a small rural community made up of several villages in southern China. And she was almost done when she heard her 3-year-old twin daughters start to cry. And this really caught her off guard, because even though these kids were only 3 years old and 3-year-olds cry, well, her daughters basically never cried. They were like silent all the time. The girls' names were Shi Tsai and Shi Hongwu, and they'd been really easy babies because they were basically quiet all the time and just wanted to sleep. However, as they got older, their silence became more concerning. All they really wanted to do was just lay around and sleep and do nothing. Even at 3 years old, they hadn't even said their first words yet. So, when this
That's
mom
weird.
heard these girls crying, she rushed down the hall to see what was going on. One, just obviously to make sure her kids were okay, but two, just out of curiosity. This is so uncharacteristic to be making any noise at all. And so the mom, she burst into the nursery and she saw her girls in their crib and they were sobbing hysterically, totally upset. And the mother rushed over and she scooped them up and asked, what's going on? Are you okay? But of course, the girls didn't say anything because they didn't speak. They just continued to cry. But the mom, she kind of assessed her kids and couldn't see any injuries. They didn't seem sick. They were just upset about something, but she had no idea what it was. And so the mom just stood there comforting her girls until they calmed down, and then she put them back into the crib and they both went to sleep. And that was it. A couple of days later, and the twin girls were back to their normal routine.
I wonder why they were
being
crying,
totally
bro.
silent and sleeping for most of the day.
Is he
And
gonna
as the
tell
girls
us?
slept in their nursery, their mom just went around the house doing some housework, and at some point, she walked down the hallway past the girls' bedroom. Now, their door to the nursery was shut, and again, they're just sleeping and being totally quiet. The mom hasn't heard them at all day. And as she's walking down the hallway, she suddenly comes to an abrupt stop right outside the nursery door, because distinctly she can hear her girls making noise in their room. But they're making a noise that just doesn't make any sense to the mother. Her daughters were not crying or fussing or anything like that. They were talking. At first, the mother
Oh,
wanted to
wow.
rush in there and experience this firsthand, this landmark moment of her girls speaking for the first time.
Yeah.
But she also worried if she went in there, they might go silent and she'd
Yeah.
ruin the moment.
Yeah, I thought about it.
And so instead,
Thought
she
about- I
just
thought
pressed her
about
ear
that.
to the door and just listened. And as she listened, she really couldn't believe what she was hearing. Because these girls weren't just babbling, saying random words. These girls were having like a full-blown conversation with each other. Like
Creepy.
adult-level sentences being spoken back and forth.
What
These
was they
girls who,
saying?
apparently, at least according to the mother, couldn't even speak. Like, how is this even happening? However, the more the mother listened to her daughters, the more unsettled she became. Not only because, she's listening to her daughters speak for the first time at like an adult level, which is totally bizarre,
Yeah, weird as fuck.
but the content of this discussion her 3-year-old daughters are having made no sense.
All right, come on.
These
Get
girls
to
were
it,
talking about
please.
stuff that they could not possibly know.
Bro,
the girls
what?
were talking in
Get to
detail about people and events from a totally different village. A village their mother knew they had never been to,
Huh?
had never even heard of, and certainly didn't know anybody who lived there. Now, in
So-
basic
Are they like reincarnated souls inside of baby bodies? I thought it was gonna be some creepy shit like, yeah, we got a bird mom at the stake tomorrow. I thought it was gonna be something like that. I know it's going like this sound like maybe like the souls inside the girls were like you used to live inside that village and they were incarnated or whatever or reincarnated I should say. I ain't gonna lie. If that happened to me, that shit would creep me the fuck out. The baby start talking like that was some adult level shit. But if that's a conversation that they're talking about, I wouldn't be as weirded out. I'm like, oh, these niggas are probably just past souls. Okay, like that's not really weird to me. Being reincarnated, that's not really weird to me. But if they were talking about like some demonic stuff, then I would be like, holy fuck. It'd be scarier because they're a baby. To be honest, I ain't gonna cap a 3-year old on that shit, bro. Nah, I'm not with it.
Basically every other part of the world, if a mother suddenly heard her 3-year-old twins, who had never said a word
This shit
before,
leaking?
suddenly having adult level
What the fuck is
conversations with
going
each
on?
other about people
Bro, tell me how my water bottle leaking from the bottom. Why is it a hole in this bitch? What? How did that even happen?
in places that they can't
Oh my god.
possibly know about, that might be enough to spurn that mother to at least call their doctor. But this mom, well, she lived in Pingyang Township. And
that
that meant, when she heard what her daughters were saying, as alarming as it was, she actually did know what was going on. Pingyang
word.
Township has a very strange secret. And that secret is that of the approximately 7,000 residents who live there, over 100 claim to be the reincarnated spirits of people who have died traumatic deaths. And this is not just some wacky thing these people are saying. No, in Pingyang Township, it's not just those 100 people who believe they really are reincarnated. It's the whole community. All 7,000 some odd people 100% believe that these people truly are reincarnated.
Word.
And so how that plays out is that periodically the reincarnated folks will go to a non-reincarnated person in the township and will claim things like, hey, in my past life, your family owed me a debt. And so now you're going to pay it out. And these
That's wild as fuck, bro. Hey, yo.
non-reincarnated people will absolutely pay that debt. Or in other cases, there have been fights, physical altercations that have come from a reincarnated person approaching a non-reincarnated person and basically saying, in a previous life, you or your family or your relatives insulted me in some capacity, my previous self, and we're going to fight about it right now.
Wow.
And those fights take place in this town. And it's totally normal. But the interactions between the reincarnated and non-reincarnated people in this township, it's not just about conflict. In fact, there's been lots of decisions made in this township that are designed very specifically to avoid conflict between the
Bro, that's actually hilarious, bro. I'm not gonna lie, bro. I'm not gonna lie, bro. Especially because as a person, like if you guys are new to my channel, bro, past lives are nothing new to me, bro. I remember some of my past lives, and I mean, I've interacted with people that I had minor beef with in the past, but I never been on some shit like, hey, yo. Remember about like 100 years ago, bro? You stepped on my fucking shoes and they say sorry. I need your fucking head for that, bitch. Like, yo. Because if someone came up to me like that, I'm going to be like, bro. Like, you either geeking the fuck out, or if that shit really happened, bro, you got to understand, like, this is a whole different lifetime. You know what I'm saying? We could make this shit right, but you're going to have to verify this shit in some way. You're going to have to prove that someone in your family knew someone in my family, or some other shit. I don't know. We're going to need to do fucking something. Because I can't just take your word for that, number one. But number two, if I somehow can, bro, then let's just work it out. We don't got to fight about it, though, nigga. I was a whole different nigga, bro. You was a whole different nigga. What about the shit? What about what you might have did to me? We gonna forget about that too? Cause I forgot about it, but you still on that shit. Niggas be holding grudges for years, bro. See, some niggas be super petty, bro. That nigga died with a vengeance, bro. That nigga was being petty as fuck. Like, yo, I'm about to come back and get that. Yo, that's crazy. That's what really happened for real, probably, bro. Niggas died, right? And was like, bro, that nigga Jerry, bro, I'm gonna catch him in the next life and get that 500, bro, where it's up for that nigga. These niggas be petty, bro. I ain't gonna lie.
reincarnated and non-reincarnated. For example, there was a little boy who claimed to be the reincarnated spirit of a pig who was butchered in town.
Oh, shit.
And the butcher, who this boy said butchered him when he was a pig,
Hey,
well,
yo.
the butcher, to make sure he was not offending this boy or potentially other people who were, the reincarnated spirits of other animals he had slaughtered,
Wow.
the butcher shut down
up.
his business just to
Oh,
be like,
shit.
I don't want to offend you all. I'll find something else to do with my life. And so when this mother heard the sound of her twin girls
Not gonna lie, that's kind of wild, bro. Imagine you go outside one day, right? and you see a fucking cow walk up to you, that motherfucker like, or no, my fault. You see a human walk up to you, right? And that motherfucker's like, yo, bro, remember that burger you was eating and shit, bro? That was me. You gonna be like, damn, bro, how that was you? I just had this meat. That meat was years old. You eating that shit from fast food. Fuck is wrong with you? That old ass preserved ass meat. I had to make it make sense somehow, you know what I'm saying? I had to know it's anyway, my point is imagine a fucking animal say, or imagine a human say, yeah, nigga, that chicken you ate, that was me. So what we gonna do about that? You ate me, bitch. Like, you know what I'm saying, bro? That shit be wild, bro. I ain't gonna lie.
Girls who had never spoke before suddenly having this detailed conversation about people and events from this other village. As jarring and shocking as that was for her, because she lives in Pingyang, she instantly understood that the only way my girls could have that information and be able to have this conversation is if they are reincarnated spirits.
Wix.
That's wild, bro.
One platform.
All right,
And so this mother did what she thought was right, which was not to call a doctor, but instead to get the word out to the people not just in her village, but across the Pingyang town.
so I get this is like a commonality, but damn, like, what if they don't want you to do that shit? I would at least ask them first. You know what I'm saying? Now, if they say, yeah, it's cool, I bet. But what if niggas don't want to be known? You know what I'm saying? Like, what if dumb niggas, you know what I'm saying? I don't know, bro. I would at least ask them if they want me to tell niggas or if I should, like, keep that shit on a hush-hush, you feel me? I get it's like a normal commonality around here, but still, bro, come on now. This is me, though.
Township that her twin daughters are actually reincarnated spirits. The mother's hope was that perhaps there was still family of these reincarnated spirits
Oh, okay,
in this other village.
Okay, I see more about why she wanted to do it, but I still would have asked them, y'all niggas want me to find y'all family? Because what if their family is the one who killed them? Then what? You don't know what happened with these people unless you ask them.
Her daughters were referencing in their conversation that would find out about this, and maybe they'd want to come here and meet their family who now live inside of her daughters. And sure enough, less than a week after this mother got the word out, this man and woman who she didn't know came knocking at her door. When the mother let them inside the house, her girls immediately recognized them. One of the twins said that this was her mother and father from her previous life. Then the twins, these little 3-year-old girls, went on to tell this unbelievably complicated and sophisticated story about how in their previous life, these twin girls were not actually sisters. Instead, they were best friends. And together, they had taken their own lives approximately 1 month before they were reborn in the bodies of these twin girls. And
These are real photos too. Nigga, they look like twins. What the fuck? That's crazy. Nigga, imagine you have a friend, y'all niggas look exactly alike. Like, I've had friends when niggas say, oh my god, y'all kind of look alike. Like, I've had friends where, like, they may think that was my brother or some shit. But, nigga, they never looked this close to me. Nigga, what the fuck? That's crazy, bro.
approximately 1 month before they were reborn in the bodies of these twin girls. And so after that, the twins just continued talking to this man and woman for quite some time, giving specific details about this village.
Wait. Did he say nothing? Hold up. How am I going back? Did he say one of the girls said that was the mom and dad, or that both of them said that was the mom and dad? Because it can't be both of them. If they was best friends, then that can only be one of the girls' mom or dad. And he might have said one of the girls, but he could have said both. I don't know. And I ain't about to go back to find out.
That again, these girls, at least according to their mother, had never been to before. These girls also gave intimate details about these teenage girls' lives and even had information that was very specific to what happened to them when they took their lives and, where their bodies were found. Again, information these girls shouldn't have. And then at some point, the mother of the twins asked this man and woman, like, are these details they're giving you accurate? Is this true? And the man and woman said, yep, it's all true. And then at some point, the twins turned to their biological mother and they told her
To their biological mother. Oh, I guess that's the hold up.
that the reason they had been silent to this point was because they were trying to keep their reincarnation a secret.
Okay, and that's the reason why I would have asked, because they might have been trying to keep it secret. But anyway, when he said biological mother, I thought that he meant the other mom at first. I was about to say how is it both of their mothers? But then I picked that they mean this one that they've been living with, the one that actually birthed them, gave them their biology.
And also, the reason they slept all the time is because when they slept, they would dream about their previous lives, which they claimed to miss. To this
Wow.
day, no one's ever been able to offer a better explanation for how these twin girls, these toddlers, had such accurate information about people they had never met and
I mean,
places
that's
they'd
just
never been to.
reincarnation,
Basically,
bro.
the only explanation that works is that they must actually be the reincarnated spirits of those teenage girls.
mean, yeah, duh.
Pingyang Township remains a hotspot of alleged reincarnations, and nobody knows why.
That is interesting, though. Yeah, I don't know why. Maybe there's some energetic vortex there, like a high level of consciousness or some type of energy. I don't fucking know.
As many of you may already know, we launched the Mr. Ballin podcast 3 years ago. Friend,
I'm
Ball-
glad that you did that, my guy.
To
It's just that we don't. You know
This
what
is one of the
I'm saying?
better-
We ain't really trying. You feel me?
On a spring afternoon in 1883, a young woman named Sarah tidied up her farmhouse in a tiny settlement called Eagle Creek in Arizona. While Sarah cleaned, her sister Elizabeth
That shit look cool as fuck, nigga. I ain't gonna lie. What the fuck? I'd love to go out there, nigga. What the hell?
took a bucket
Well, in hindsight, I mean, if I really think about it, probably not. Probably hot as shit on now. It's in Arizona, right? That shit probably hot as fuck.
outside to get water from their outdoor spring. So Sarah and Elizabeth actually lived together in this farmhouse along with their respective families. The American West at this time was sparsely populated and dangerous, so it was not uncommon for families to kind of band together like this. Their husbands herded the sheep and worked the land, while Sarah and Elizabeth looked after the house and also took care of their collective 4 kids. And so on this day, as Elizabeth was out getting water, Sarah continued to tidy up the house with one eye on the kids, making sure they were okay, when all of a sudden, the family's dogs, who were leashed up outside, began barking really aggressively. Now, for Sarah, this was really alarming because the dogs typically were pretty docile and didn't make a lot of noise. So clearly, something was going on outside. And so Sarah told the kids to stay inside, and she quickly went outside onto the porch to see what the dogs were barking at. And so once Sarah was out on that porch, she immediately surveyed the area out in front of her, and off to her left and off to her right was just rocky scrubland, and then right in front of their house was this big sandy hill that kind of obscured their view off into the distance. And the dogs, who were leashed up right in front of the property out in the front yard, they were all looking right at that hill and barking at it. At first,
Okay.
Sarah couldn't understand what the dogs were even barking at. I mean, she looked around a few more times to see if she was missing anything, but there was nothing happening out here. But then, as
If that was me, I would have fucking known it was some shit there. The fuck you mean? Y'all niggas barking at nothing, just looking. Nigga, okay, y'all niggas must see a ghost. That's one of my first thoughts. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know. But I get it, niggas don't be living like that. But me, that's how I live. I really do this shit. I really understand that the supernatural shit is really a thing.
Sarah continued to stare at this hill where the dogs were still barking, she suddenly saw this huge creature emerge over the top
Whoa,
and
what
begin
the
coming
fuck?
down the hill in her direction.
Wait, what?
It was this massive 4-legged creature with red fur, and its back was all twisted up. And on the back of this creature was this man. Except it was not a normal-looking man. His face was horrible and sunken, and his mouth was in this huge grin. And as she stared at him in total
Ew.
shock and disbelief, she saw he was missing eyes. Now, Sarah
Oh,
was a
hell
deeply religious
no.
person. And so as she's watching this creature being ridden on by this person come charging towards her, all she could think was, this is the devil. The devil is riding on this red creature.
Nigga, I did not think that's what the fuck he was gonna say, bro. This bitch thought it was my fault. This girl thought it was the devil, bro. That's hilarious, bro.
Creature being ridden on by this person come charging towards her, all she could think was, this is the devil. The devil is riding on this red creature and it's coming to get me and my family. And so instinctively, she just turned, bolted inside the house, barricaded the door with the kitchen table, and then rounded up the 4 kids and sat in the kitchen, huddled over them, praying to God to
Okay, I
save
was
them.
waiting. I was like, is she gonna pray or not? You know what I'm saying?
from the devil. But as she was doing this, Sarah suddenly heard this blood-curdling scream come from somewhere outside. And she knew it sounded way too human of a scream to be coming from the devil or the creature it was riding on. And then she remembered her sister was out there getting water. That scream almost certainly came from her sister. But Sarah was so scared, she couldn't move. And she had these 4 kids to look after. And so instead of going out to try to save her sister, she just held the kids closer and continued to pray, hoping her sister would survive.
Why is everybody putting up with ads like it's 20?
I'll be back.
Hours later, Sarah was still inside the barricaded house, clutching the children, praying, and her sister Elizabeth had not made another sound, and she had not come back to the house. So she's been gone for hours at this point. And Sarah feels horrible. All she wants to do is go out there and find her sister, but she just feels like she can't leave her kids, and she knows the devil is out there, so she can't go out there.
Bro, the way he's saying it, she just knows the devil is out there. Like, the devil's there, so she can't really... Nah, this is funny, bro. I'm not gonna lie.
But just then, she hears footsteps out on the porch, and then she hears the sound of the doorknob turning and then bumping up against the barricade. And Sarah immediately thinks it's the devil. The devil's come back, and so she screams, and the kids are screaming. But then, on the other side of the door, Sarah hears the sound of 2 familiar voices. It was the sound of her and Elizabeth's husbands. They had come back from herding the sheep, and they're calling into her like, hey, what's going on here? Let us in. And so this huge wave of relief came over Sarah. She rushed to the door, she got rid of the barricade, flung it open, and immediately began sobbing and telling these men about what had happened, about the devil, about hearing that scream, which she believed was Elizabeth. And oh, by the way, Elizabeth is still not back yet. No idea what happened to her. And so
Nigga, she let her sister get taken. That's what the fuck happened. By the devil. Fuck you.
the 2 husbands are immediately so concerned. They have no idea about the validity of the story, but Elizabeth is gone. They have to go find her.
Yeah.
And so the 2 men, they grab their guns and lanterns, and they head off towards the outdoor spring to hopefully find Elizabeth. And so the 2 men, they begin making their way down this path towards the spring. And at first they were walking, kind of keeping their composure, but quickly as they're calling out for Elizabeth and not getting a response, they just took off running. And as they turned the corner and they finally saw the spring, they also saw Elizabeth. And she was face down on the ground with blood all around her.
Oh, shit.
She was dead. And so as Elizabeth's husband wept over Elizabeth's body, Sarah's husband rode off into town to get the local coroner to come out and investigate to see what happened to Elizabeth. The only thing that seemed fairly obvious about Elizabeth's death, at least to the 2 husbands, was that Elizabeth looked like she had been trampled to death. There were all these hoof prints all around her when they found her.
Damn.
And so the coroner, he comes out and he looks at the scene, he sees Elizabeth, and he agrees that it looks like she was trampled to death. However, when he examined the hoof prints that were all over the place, they were way too big to be a horse's hoof print. And so the coroner literally said, I can't say she died by being trampled by a horse. This was not a horse. And so the coroner wound up speaking to Sarah, who would tell him all about, how the devil came over the hill on this big 4-legged creature.
I feel like if she didn't call him the devil, it'd be a bit more believable. You know what I'm saying? It might still seem a bit crazy, but I think it'd be a bit more believable if she wasn't saying the devil.
That was all red, and she heard the scream, which must have been Elizabeth, and so the devil has trampled her sister to death. That's what happened. Now, the coroner agreed with Sarah that very likely her sister had been trampled to death by something gigantic. However, he didn't believe the actual details of Sarah's story.
Yeah,
he did not believe that the devil killed Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, because the coroner just couldn't be sure what actually happened to her, he wound up listing Elizabeth's cause of death as just unknown. But the coroner's doubts did not stop the story of the devil from spreading. Before long, basically everybody on the Arizona frontier had heard about the devil and the strange creature he rode, to the point where they were given a nickname. Together, they were called the Red Ghost. Still, most people who heard this story didn't really believe it actually happened. They figured it was kind of a joke or maybe an exaggeration, just sort of lore passed around town. But over the next few years following Elizabeth's death, sightings of the so-called Red Ghost became much more frequent and more strange. Many campers claim to have seen the Red Ghost trotting through the Arizona wilderness. In fact, some of these people claim that in the middle of the night, the red ghost would appear and trample on their tents. One cowboy claimed he got close enough to the red ghost that he was able to actually lasso its neck. However, the red ghost, in turn, took off so quickly and so powerfully that the cowboy got dragged and had to let go. And so stories like these, run-ins with the red ghost out in the wild, persisted for years, until about a decade after Elizabeth's death, this farmer in eastern Arizona happened to look out his window, and there, standing in his turnip patch, was the so-called red ghost. And this farmer had heard all the stories about the red ghost, and he had already made up his mind about what he would do if he ever ran into the red ghost, and that would be to shoot it. And so what did he do?
Did he really murder it?
He grabbed his rifle, he leaned out the window, and he fired. And the red ghost crumpled to the ground right in the middle of the turnip patch. Once the creature
Why niggas didn't take a picture of that shit?
was down, the farmer rushed outside and ran up to the carcass to finally see what the heck the red ghost was, what was causing all these stories to spread over so many years. And when he got out there and actually looked down at the red ghost, he knew immediately that all the stories about this creature had been wrong. It would turn out the red ghost was not the devil riding some supernatural monster. Instead, the red ghost was a combination of two very mortal beings. The first of these two beings was a creature that, if you saw it today, you would know what it was. But for folks in Arizona in the late 1800s, they would have no way of knowing what this creature was. They had never seen it before. It had red fur, a long neck, and a humped back. It was a camel. It had been brought to the United States from the Mediterranean to help haul supplies through the western frontier, and it had escaped captivity. But this camel alone was not responsible for scaring the people of Arizona. What terrified the people of Arizona and created the legend of the red ghost was the rider of the camel. When Sarah saw the rider on the camel, at first she thought it was a person. But when she looked more closely, she saw they didn't have eyes and they had this disgusting toothy grin. They just couldn't be human to her. And so she had decided this must be the devil. But it would turn out her first instinct was right. This was a person. There was a person on the back of that camel. The devil on the back of the camel was a man's decomposing corpse. And because he was a decomposing corpse, his flesh and eyes had rotted from his face, making it look like he had no eyes and gave him this huge toothy grin because there was no flesh there. Now, we don't know who this man was or how exactly he died. All we know is at some point he was riding this camel escaped, he died and somehow didn't fall off, and his dead body remained in an upright seated position on this camel. And then this camel just roamed around Arizona for years with this corpse on its back, giving the impression that it was the devil riding on a monster. Today, the red ghost remains a local legend in Arizona. In fact, there's even a permanent statue of the camel in a small Arizona town called Quartzsite.
Oh, wow, bro. Alright, that's it for this video. It was a pretty good one. I fucked with it. I love you. Catch my next video. Peace the freak out.